Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm MJ. I'm a non-binary and autistic science fiction and fantasy author. This channel is all about the craft of writing with a neurodivergent and queer focus. This video is part of the How to Self-Publish series. Let's work on getting your book published in 2026. You've written the book and sent it off to beta readers and or editors. Now let's talk about the hard part, taking feedback. When do you need to follow advice? When do you need to leave the advice behind? And how do you know the difference? Let's dive in. Taking feedback is hard. In previous videos, I've talked about how authors are created, not born. It is all about our mindset. And this means that as authors, one of our main jobs is continuing to learn and grow. Here's the truth. Hearing feedback about our stories is hard. It is hard for everyone, but neurodivergent writers may have it especially hard. We have been told we are wrong our entire lives, in nearly every context. And now we're hearing about our book, something that is a very personal part of ourselves. But let's pause and reframe that for a second. Feedback doesn't mean that your book is wrong. You wrote a book. That is an amazing thing. Most people will never do that, and you did. Congratulations. If you're watching this series, then there's a good chance that this is your first book, or the first book that you are preparing to be published. And this means you are taking this amazing accomplishment and leveling up. And that means the hardest part of writing the book is next. And that means we have to do the hardest part of writing a book, listening to feedback. So when do you need to listen to feedback? Well, in the video on alpha, beta, and ARC readers, I mentioned that you need to understand the background of the person who is giving you feedback. And this is important in all contexts. A reader is going to give you feedback on their experience. You may not want to restructure an entire novel over this feedback. But if you're publishing your book, knowing how your book is going to be perceived by readers is important. Editors will give you feedback specific to the editing choices that they made. They may be breaking down your overall structure, helping to tweak lines, correcting punctuation, and giving suggestions to your story. If you found an experienced editor, they should be doing this without losing your voice as an author. Other authors tend to give experience based on writing a book. But even here, this experience can vary. The rules of cozy mysteries are different from science fiction or romance. There are also a variety of experiences of authors as well. Feedback from an author who has published 10 books will be different from an author who has yet to publish. And all feedback can be invaluable, but it's important to understand where it's coming from while deciding how much you should listen to and implement. Do you have to take the feedback? The honest truth is you do not have to implement any feedback that anyone gives you, ever. It's your book. However, if your aim is to learn and grow as an author, then editing your own work is important. Putting words down on a page is an important practice, but my overall growth as an author has come from shaping those words to be the best that I can make them. I have learned more by listening to others' feedback about my writing than by just writing. It is the process of thinking through why they suggested something, how it will impact my story, and why it is good advice or why it isn't good advice for my situation. This also helps me to understand my writing style, and I do have a list of things I do per draft to make my story better. I do not have to do these things, but I do, because I want my stories to be the best that they can be. Well, how do you take feedback? Well, when you first get feedback from any project, you may want to sit with it. It is perfectly natural for you to reject any and all changes. This is your book. But once you sit with it, your brain starts thinking about how the feedback could help your book to develop. Or maybe it thinks about why the feedback isn't helpful for your situation. The important thing is you sit with it and critically think it through. Feedback isn't a personal attack. Sometimes people provide feedback in a less than kind way. That isn't helpful to anyone, and surrounding yourself with people who push you to grow as an author, but do so without being an, a-hole, is important. But growth itself is uncomfortable, so it will never be a completely painless process. But it isn't an attack on you as a person. Again, this will tend to be harder for neurodivergent people because we are so often attacked for being who we are. If you ask for or pay for feedback and then dismiss all feedback given to you, then you are doing a disservice to your book. Also, you are diminishing the labor that others have put into your book. And this is especially true for unpaid labor, such as potentially beta reading. At least you are financially compensating your editors if you decide to dismiss all of their feedback. Do you want to grow as an author and continue improving as you work towards publication? Or do you want to put out a novel that's not all that it can be? You do not have to write for publication. Fan fiction, writing for personal enjoyment, and writing for family, friends, it's all valid. But to write for publication, either indie or trad publication, means learning how to work through the feedback. And just so I'm clear, this is a specific set of times for book feedback. This is not referencing reviews. Reviews are not feedback. So let's talk about lifelong learning as an author. As a writer, you need to keep learning. Read craft books, watch YouTube videos, such as this one. Annotate books to see why you enjoy their writing or why you don't. Push yourself to improve. If you do not, then you will not improve as an author. If being a published author is the goal, then learning how to take feedback, learning how to continually improve on your craft, and breaking through the often uncomfortable feeling of hearing feedback to help expand past where you currently are as a writer is important. I know it's hard, but you can do this. I don't think that this is talked about enough in writing spaces, so I hope that you found it helpful. Remember to think through where your advice is coming from, how it relates to your project, and critically think through your writing project. If you have any specific questions or want to share your experience, let me know in the comments. If you found this helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more WriterTube content every Tuesday. I also host live writing sprints on Fridays from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Come write with me. If you want to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee. The link is below. Happy writing, and remember, you're learning and growing, and that's what matters. As always, keep reading, keep writing, and keep dreaming.